we're talking about some new slide dive behavior mechanics added with Season 2 of Modern Warfare 3 as well as Warzone. We had tap to slide and tap to dive back in Modern Warfare 2. Then when Modern Warfare 3 dropped, they added slide only and dive only, which added a ton of different issues. If you were on slide only, felt more responsive, but then you would accidentally dive sometimes. So they had to kind of patch that out. But to solve for that, they've introduced a new one, which we'll talk about, and that is hybrid. So we'll go through each of them, explain how each of them work and how their responsiveness works, meaning that when you press the button, how fast does it actually do the action versus holding it, how long does that take? So the first one we'll go ahead and take a look at is the tap to slide mechanic. So this should be a tap to slide and then a hold to dive. And pretty much how this one works is when I tap the button, it takes 150 milliseconds between me pressing the button for the action to take place, which is relatively slow when we compare it to the other options other than holding. So pretty much you can slide just by tapping the button here and there, and you just go, and you can come out of that by tapping the jump button. And that's how you do a slide cancel. You slide, you jump, you slide, you jump. But that 150 seconds kind of slows you down if you're used to spamming the button. And that's why slide only got so popular, because it cuts down on that time. And we'll get to that. Then we got dive, which takes 300 milliseconds, which is super long. That's double the length of time that it takes to do the other one. So you're going to end up where it's not responsive, but it gives you a clear way to do both of those actions. You'll never accidentally slide and you'll never accidentally dive. You'll do both of them when you want to, but they will feel less responsive. Tap to dive, I don't think this has ever gained popularity, but it's the exact same thing, but flipped. It takes 150 milliseconds to do the dive, and then it takes 300 to do the slide. Very slow. You're probably not going to slide cancel with the hold like that. It'd be very awkward. Then we get to slide only. So slide only is super responsive. You press the button, it takes 50 milliseconds approximately, give or take a frame or something, probably 67 milliseconds or something like that. But overall, very responsive. I press the button, it does the action pretty instantly. And what people like about that is you can kind of have control over that movement and it feels responsive, meaning that when you press the button, it does the action. Problem is you can't dive. So if I want to get around this corner, I want to dive, I can't do it. Prior to the update, it was a little bit bugged where you could bind this to a different button if you use special settings or whatever the case was. And people kind of worked around it and learned to work with slide only, allowing you to dive so you can get that responsive slide, which is cool. And then now that's been patched. So you won't accidentally slide. Before you can do like a weird motion and you would do a dive, and now it just doesn't. That's patched and fixed, which is good. And that's going to make some people mad that got used to it, but you got to kind of relearn based off the settings. So overall, very responsive, but no dive available. Then when we get into dive only, works very much the same. 50 milliseconds-ish, very fast, a third of the time to do the animation. Very responsive, but now you can no longer slide. So you're not going to be slide canceling with this one, but it is super responsive that when you press the button, it will do the dive. And then that brings us to the last one, which is the best of both. When I go ahead and tap to slide, it does it in 50 milliseconds. I get that super fast responsiveness. If you press R3 a lot, this one will piss you off because you'll accidentally dive when you're not trying to dive. Like this, I'm diving. And diving is, guess what? Super fast responsive as well. It'll give you the fastest responsiveness to slide and to dive. So it's basically giving you slide only and dive only speeds, but you can do both of them. So for the second part, it says tap while holding sprint input to dive. And this is one way to make it work, but there's actually an additional way. So it's pretty much if you go ahead and press L3 or whatever your sprint is, if you tap it beforehand. So hopefully maybe we get used to it, or they can fix it so it makes sure that you have to be holding L3 to dive. So right here, if I hold L3, I will dive. It works exactly the way you think. I'm holding it, I dive. I'm on auto sprint, I'm holding it, and then I just press dive on my pedal. Holding it, and then I press circle to dive. It will dive every single time. If I'm sprinting and not doing that, what you'll see right here is we'll go ahead and sprint, and then I'm sliding now. Sliding now. The actions work that way. The part where it gets super tricky is like, let's say if I want to slide cancel or snake, I don't know. Maybe you get the issue there. I don't know. You hold it, you get the dive. It's just you have to rework your mind to get used to this because it works the way it says it works. And both are super responsive. So in a perfect world, when you learn how to use this one and get this one into your muscle memory, it is the best of all of them scenarios. Will you accidentally dive when you don't want to? Will you accidentally slide possibly when you don't want to initially? Yes. From user error. So if you don't want to get used to it and you just like slide only still, this one does give you the advantages of being able to slide and dive when you want, especially in Warzone. If I wanted to dive off a building, I could just dive like that and I will get the dive I want. If I wanted to slide, I can slide and then dive and I dive. You can kind of get used to the movement. Takes a little bit of practice, but as long as you know that when you're holding the button, you're going to dive. When you don't have it pushed in, you're going to slide. It's pretty straightforward and it is very responsive. I know for some it's going to be hard. Even myself, it's going to be a little bit of acclimation period, but overall it is the most responsive setting there at 50 milliseconds or so for each action versus the 150 milliseconds for slide and dive with the normal tap to slide or tap to dive, or having slide at 50 milliseconds with slide only, not being able to dive, and vice versa with the dive only, not being able to slide. This gives you the best of both. I think it is actually the best all-around setting. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Appreciate the support. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great day.